In this episode, I interview Mel Abraham, which has been a mentor of mine. And I've learned so much from Mel over the years when it comes to structuring your information, creating frameworks so that way you can better present what's on your mind, what's on your heart in a way that lands with your audience. Now, Mel is the host of the Affluent Entrepreneur podcast, and also he does a lot of work in the world of financial growth. Mel in this episode shares with us he had a bout with cancer to where how he structured his finances through the years actually supported this battle to where he was able to let go of his business and to invest his finances in the best team possible in order to overcome this time in his life. Now, Mel has got his feet settled again. He's cancer free. He has new, trainings and teachings that he's coming out with. So this is an inspiring episode. So stay tuned. I'm Adam Kadu, and it's time to master the art of real heart alignment, where you live, work, and play from your personal power as energy aligns, your gifts flow, and life simply works. These life-changing conversations are designed to help you to see what you're not seeing, hear what you're not hearing, and to be who you're not being, as the world needs more heart-centered leaders now more than ever. Are you ready to say no to living a half-hearted life and say yes instead to boldly living from a place of real heart alignment? Welcome to the Adam Kadu podcast.
Hey man, how are you? So good to be here.
Yeah, doing well. I appreciate you taking the time to fill us in on all the good things about entrepreneurship and helping some entrepreneurs get their money stories right and all that stuff. We're going to get into all that and more in this episode. Before I dive in, I got some good questions to ask Mel today. I wanted to give a little bit of a backstory about how I have connected with Mel, and I've basically purchased almost all of his programs, a lot of his older stuff and some of his newer stuff and all these things. And Mel is one of those guys that is, I think James might call you the Swiss Army knife or something like that, James Wedmore, when it comes to understanding entrepreneurship from a more full scope to where it's not just kind of niche and this is where I'm staying in my lane, but you have great knowledge and wisdom about tech, tools, launching. Mel was or is still an accountant at one point, so he knows a lot about the inner works of money. And now he's really diving into that conversation when it comes to entrepreneurship, their relationship with money, building wealth, being able to create the lifestyle that they want to create, and not just by relying on the revenue that's coming in immediately right now. So Mel has been a mentor of mine and an inspiration in my life. He's got a lot of good stories that hopefully we'll pull out in this episode today. So, but Mel, take us on a journey a little bit, man. Tell us a little bit about just your entrepreneur journey very quickly, and also how you landed in this whole money scope where you're leaning into right now.
Wow. So, my entrepreneur journey started a long, long time ago. My very first entrepreneurial endeavor was at 11 years old. I literally started doing magic shows for kids' birthday parties. I was getting paid $50 for a 30-minute show, which was pretty doggone good back in 1972. So it wasn't bad. And but what was really enlightening, what was really empowering about it was this aha for an 11-year-old kid to sit back and go, you can actually get paid for doing something you love and putting smiles on people's faces to bring brightness, to bring hope, to bring joy, to allow that to happen. And I thought, this is a cool way to make a living. And so, I think that truly entrepreneurship is not much different than the magic, but the reality is that entrepreneurs bring dreams to the surface. They allow dreams to come true. They solve problems. They bring solutions. They change people's lives. I truly believe that the primary focus of an entrepreneur is to improve the human condition. And so I that was my first endeavor. But I like you said, I'm a CPA. I went down that traditional path. I worked for one of the largest consulting firms in the world at the time in downtown Los Angeles, and was doing mergers and acquisitions. I was buying and selling businesses. We were doing valuations. I was doing litigation, all that type of stuff. I was building some things. But I realized in a big corporate environment that really wasn't where my strengths were, because I was seeing one little slice of business and I wanted to do more. And so I ended up leaving them and ultimately ending up on my own in a firm where we were doing the typical CPA stuff and I was doing the consulting and that type of thing. And it wasn't until the mid 90s where my partners at the time said, we don't want to be partners anymore. I mean, they kind of pushed me out the door. I'm looking back, it was a gift.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so they pushed me out the door. No cash flow, no money, no client backlog, no clients, no work backlog. I mean, and I was 300,000+ in debt because I just bought a house. And so I was sitting back trying to figure out what the heck to do. Now, it happened to also be the same year that I became a single full-time dad of my son, who was at that time 5.5 years old. And so here I was looking at it saying, I got the greatest gift of being a father in my hands right now, and this great responsibility. And I have this dream of being an entrepreneur. I have this dream of having an impact on people. I have this dream of making a difference and finding financial independence. So I did what most entrepreneurs do. When we all get in our business, we have this dream of having financial freedom and financial independence, and we're going to do these great things. And so I stuck my head down. I got on the treadmill and I started running. And I started working. And all of a sudden I start to pick up clients. All of a sudden I start to get cash flow. And all of a sudden things are growing, things are going. And I'm looking at it going, hey, Jeremy, man, we're going to be good. I'm going to keep the roof over their head. We're going to get a chance to do this thing. Everything's going to be cool. And he came running in one day and he said, Daddy, I drew a picture of you at school today. And there I was, kneeling down, grabbing this picture from me. He was so excited about it. And then I look at this picture and here I am. It's in blue felt tip pen. I'm this stick figure with 2 computer screens and a phone in each ear and the one on the desk ringing. And it was in that moment that I realized that I was botching. I was totally screwing it up. That he didn't see us having fun. He didn't see us playing ball. He didn't see us at Disneyland. He didn't see anything in his dad other than work. He saw me in front of computer screens and phone calls and all kinds of other things that really were meaningless to him. And I could have at that time looked at him and say, hey kid, man, this is for us. This is how we get to do those things. But we weren't getting to do those things. And you had all the people in my ears and they're just kind of saying, hey Mel, you got to get a work-life balance. But I got to tell you, the more I thought about it is that work-life balance is actually a myth. It's a bill of goods. It just doesn't exist. We don't need work-life balance because it insinuates that we're gonna spend part of our life doing one thing, part of our life doing another thing, part of our life doing another thing. So we compartmentalize our life, and we have these conflicting compartments through our life. And the fact is that I could have easily said profits are going to be what's given us our life. And they are if we do it right. But you know what? My son didn't need my profits. He needed my presence. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I realized it's not about work-life balance. It's about work-life harmony. It's about us understanding that every choice in business, every choice with our money, every choice with our effort, every choice with what we do is truly a life choice because we affect lives. You think it's a business choice, but think about it. You affect your teams, your customers, yours, your spouses, the kids, the grandkids, whatever. Everything is a life decision. And if we understood that, we would make different decisions. We would make decisions a little differently. And that's where I started to look at it and say, how do you do business differently? How do we look at this? Because I'll be doggone if this gift that I've been given a father, I'm going to totally screw it up. I got to do it right because I only get one shot at it. Yeah. And so I needed to spend the time to understand, how do you do business differently? How do you do money differently? How do we build wealth? And how do we find true liberation from a financial standpoint? And I love it. That's the journey I've been on.
Yeah. And that story has had such a huge impact on me. I'm a new dad of a little man, 1 year and 3 months. And wow. Mel, you've shared that photo at, I believe, a BBD Live event. And that really hit home to me even before I was a dad, because I knew at one point I'm gonna have some little ones running around me. Just got to. It's just in my cards for sure. And seeing that, that allowed me to have a mirror to myself to constantly check in with myself to make sure that I'm not exuding the same energy as a lot of working class parents out there that were, hustling their butts off just to get by. And you at that moment with your son, Jeremy, you had a choice. You had a choice to do what most fathers would have done at that point. And like you said, create the story that you've got to work hard to make money. But in that moment, you knew better because that's not the story that you wanted to write for yourself and for him.
Yeah.
So in being present in that moment, you got a chance to not only take this in a direction that's going to fulfill both of you more, but also is going to not implant these stories in your son's life about how business needs to be and the standards and what you have to do to make it happen, because that would have totally changed his relationship with business before he even got into business at that standpoint.
And I think he got the message, because let's fast forward. He's no longer 6, he's 31. Him and his wife are expecting their first child, so I'm going to be granddad.
Oh, nice.
Of a little girl, and he's had his own business since age 16. And just recently, so once they announced they're pregnant, and then they did the gender reveal, he says to us, "Hey, can you watch our dog?" And I go, "Sure, we love your dog. How long?" He says, "For a month." And I go, "What?" I go, "A month?" I mean, totally fine, but why a month? He says, "Well, we figured when the baby's born, we won't be able to travel as much. So I got us an Airbnb in Maui, and we're leaving for a month." So I think he got the message.
He did. Oh, I love that. I love that. That's so beautiful. And I know in your work that you're doing now, you're really leaning into one of the main components is to flush out some of these stories that we adopt and we see for our lives. And obviously the stories that we hold true to ourselves, they're going to influence and determine the actions we take and how we show up in our lives and business. So maybe let's start in there a little bit. Just real quick, walk us through what made you really want to create this new program that you have now, Affluent Blueprint.
Well, the Affluence Blueprint was born out of my 35 plus year journey as an entrepreneur and as a financial advisor and mentor and everything. But really what happened was I had some dear friends, and you know them, James Wedmore and Brendan Bouchard and Brandon Lucero and so many people that said, "You're doing this kind of consulting, this mentoring with folks." Like even my own son, they're 31 and 27. They are expecting their first child. They have 3 homes. They have a multi-million-dollar net worth at 31 and 27. And so they were asking me, they said, how did they do that? How did you get them to do that? What did you do? And you need to start teaching it. And I actually resisted it for years. I pushed back on it. I resisted it because I would said, I don't want to get pushed back into being a CPA. I don't want people calling me up and saying, "Hey, can I buy an hour of your time?" And the answer is no. Okay. No, I'm not selling time. It's the worst model that there is. I don't sell hours. I don't track hours. And so I didn't want to do it. And he said, and James was one of the ones that said to me, he says, "Challenge is you're probably still seeing yourself as a CPA that happens to be a thought leader and an entrepreneur." He says, "I see you as a thought leader and an entrepreneur that happens to be a CPA. It's a little different." He says, "You have a process. You can speak to the process." And that's where this started to come about. And I started to do it. But then June 2019 hit. And in June 2019, now let's go back a little bit. A few weeks before that moment, life was good. Did a multi-6-figure launch. I'm masterminding with some of the top entrepreneurs in the space. They're running $100 million, billion-dollar companies. I'm in Puerto Rico. We're masterminding right on the water and the beach, and with all these guys and gals. Amazing time. I flew back on a G5. If you've never been on a G5, you got to do it at least once. So I flew back on G5 2 weeks after I stepped off that plane, private jet. 2 weeks after I stepped off that plane, I found myself in a hospital bed. and hearing 3 words that I never thought I'd ever hear in my life, and that is, "You have cancer." They found a 5 centimeter tumor in my bladder. They, when I was going in, and at that time when I was going in, they looked at me and said, "Listen, it's on top of the prostate. We don't know. We might have to take out the prostate when we go in. We can't see the ureter on the right side. We might have to put a tube and a bag in for the kidney. And if it's bad, you're going to lose your bladder." So what I thought was this wonderful life got turned upside down in an instant, just completely turned around, because everything I knew about life. Now, I was not supposed to be the kid that got cancer. No one in my family's ever had cancer. Okay. I don't have any of the risk factors. I'm not a drinker. I'm not a smoker. I'm not around chemicals. I had none of that. So there's no reason for me to have it, but somehow I got it. Okay. When they went in, it was a 7.5 centimeter tumor, not a 5 centimeter tumor. It was 50% bigger. One of the hardest extractions. The surgeon, one of the top surgeons in the country, is an academic. He teaches, he researches, but he said it was one of the hardest he's ever done. It took him 5.5, 6 hours to do it. Okay. But here's the thing that I know. When I got diagnosed, I realized that I had to fight the cancer. I had to fight the cancer. I had to fight it physically. I had to fight it emotionally. I had to fight it spiritually. I had to fight it energetically. I had to fight it medically. I had to fight it on all fronts, except I didn't have to fight it financially. I didn't have to sit back and say, but I got to keep working, because I didn't need to keep working. And I literally pulled myself out of the businesses. I shut down to probably about 10 to 20% of my effort, my work, and focused all of it on healing. But the beautiful thing was that the way I built a financial machine, and how I when I work with entrepreneurs and all that in these things, that idea is that this isn't about us starting to sell things to survive. We didn't have to downsize our lifestyle. We didn't have to get rid of the house. I'm not selling my wife's shoes. Gosh, if I sold my wife's shoes, it'd be worse than the cancer. So, okay. So I didn't have to do that. I wasn't draining things. I just flipped a switch, and there was cash flow coming in to keep the lifestyle and everything there, so I could sit back and focus on what I needed to focus in on at that time. Now, that's what started to get me to start realizing the importance of doing it right, because too often entrepreneurs are building a house of cards and they don't realize that it could crumble. And then we get hit with a pandemic, because it's real easy for people, including myself, before I got diagnosed, to say, well, cancer, I'm not gonna worry about cancer. See, this thing, it wasn't about the cancer. It's not about the cancer. It's about life. It's about understanding, are you set up financially? Are you set up properly financially when life decides to happen to you? When life decides to take a turn for whatever reason that you didn't expect? When it turns upside down? Because if you're not, then you've got a house of cards.
Yeah, that's huge. I love that, man. I'm getting chills just all over hearing that. And it's one of those things too, that at that standpoint, when that all transpired, was the affiliate blueprint, or excuse me, the affluent blueprint on your mind, or did it kind of come almost because of that?
No, what happened was, it was on my mind. I was producing it. We were getting it done. And then I put it on the back burner because of the cancer. But then in the midst of the cancer, I realized, oh no, this is the reason it has to get out. This is the reason 100%. It needs to be out there. So the cancer actually accelerated it and kept it moving forward because I saw the need.
Yeah. Amazing, man. So, and I got to ask, and this is a deeper personal question, but hey, that's what we're doing on the show. At that standpoint, and I know that you fixed your mind right away. It's like, look, we're fighting this thing, we're beating this thing. But was there a standpoint that was just like, seeing the way things were going, what shifted in you after you beat it and just going through that is going to just have a lasting effect on your life at this point? I mean, I work from the premise, and I've never had a scare like that or anything like that, but death is our greatest advisor. And I check in with that all the time. just to see, you know, at the end of my days, long, 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 long down the road, did I show up? Did I play full out? Or am I going to have to ask myself and answer a lot of tough questions at that standpoint? So tell us a little bit about that and just kind of what came up and what maybe shifted during that time.
So let's not think that I didn't have my dark moments.
Yeah.
I had plenty. I still do. We just went through just this past week, another scope, which marked, so we'll go back. I ended up having 3 surgeries, 4 tumors taken out. Okay. Over the last surgery was a year ago. And so we just did a scope, and then I had 33 treatments and over that time. So the last surgery, like I said, was a year ago, and I just had a scope this past week, and that scope came back clean and clear and no issues. Now, one of the challenges with the type of cancer I have is it's got a high reoccurrence rate, 60 to 70%. So we have to stay extremely proactive on it. And I've got a team of doctors that are all over it for me and everything. But it's not ever gone, in the sense that as I approached the scope, as I knew that date was coming up, all of a sudden it's a reminder that, hey, you could hear the other words you don't want to hear. It's back. So it is a struggle. Now, passing the 1 year milestone was a big deal, but it is a struggle, and it still can be a struggle. However, I think that what keeps me going, first off, I've got people in my corner that I'm blessed with. The first person being my beautiful bride, my wife, just amazing. There's no way I would have handled this with the kind of grace that I am, if it wasn't for her and the support and those around me. But I think the biggest decision I had to make was the fact that I needed to know what my outcome was, not what it could be, but what I am going to choose it to define it as. And so if I know what my outcome is, the only thing left that I don't know is the journey. And that journey was going to unfold each and every day. And so as I looked at it in that construct, this isn't any different than life.
Yeah.
You know, I know what my outcome in life is, what I'm really looking for, what my vision is. I don't know what the journey is. Each day it's going to unfold, and I'm going to make a decision on that day to keep moving me towards that outcome. And so if something happens, I'm just going to have to make another decision to keep moving me towards the outcome, but I have to be committed to that outcome. And I think that's part of what kept me moving forward. The other thing was is that, like I said, I didn't have any of the risk factors. In fact, they said that the average age for someone getting this cancer is 73. And I'm going, hey, unless mom lied on the birth certificate, I'm not even close to that. I mean, I'll be 60 this year, but, so I got diagnosed at 57, and so I went into a dark place. It happened in big ways twice. Once at the initial diagnosis, and then I was clear, and I went in for a scope last April, and they said we found another tumor. And so I thought I was out of the woods, and now they found another one. So in both those cases, I kind of went back and go, why, how? And we always talk about the why. Now, the question of why is an important question to ask in certain contexts. In other contexts, it doesn't serve you, because we're searching for the why behind us. We're looking backwards and say, what did I do? What did I do to deserve this? What did I do? How did this happen? All of those things, choices we made, whatever it was. But the why may never be found. I'm probably never going to know. We've done all kinds of testing. But the only thing and this was what drove me to start doing more of what I'm doing today, is the realization that the why actually isn't behind us.
Yep.
The why is in front of us. The why is what we choose to make of it. And the only way that this cancer has meaning to me, the only way this cancer has value to me, is if I make it mean something and make it mean something positive. And therefore I look at it and I go, by me going out and teaching how to get your financial game right, so God forbid this ever happens to someone out there, then that gives the cancer value.
Yeah.
You know, I have a dear friend, David Bach, who talks about money too. And we were having a conversation because I'm working on a book and everything. He goes, why are you doing this? You're launching a show. You're doing all these things. You don't need to work. You're financially independent. Why do you do this? And I said, it's what's going to give the cancer meaning and value. It's what's going to allow it to make sense in my life. That if I just shrink, then I, in some sense, some weird way, I feel like I let it win, and I'm just not going to let it win.
Love it, man. This is powerful. I mean, to be able to see something that, is in all respects, could be scary. And, I mean, it's yeah, all the stuff, and to flip it on its head and to use it as a gift, right? As a blessing to help more people, and to, like you said, make sure that other people are equipped to be able to build the team and the resources and step away from the business and all that. And that's absolutely huge, because I know myself included, for the longest time as an entrepreneur, spending a lot of time just making money. And what I wasn't doing is building wealth.
Well, and this is what I call the treadmill entrepreneur.
Yeah.
We get on the treadmill and we start building. We're running. We forget what's around us. We forget, we don't experience it. And when we think we need more money, we want to scale, we want to build a team, we want to do bigger. What do? We run faster, we run longer, we run harder. And all of a sudden life passes us by, or we break down, we burn out, we fall apart, relationships fall apart, health falls apart. And we start to go, what happened? What happened was we happened. Yeah. We allowed the treadmill of life and the treadmill of business and entrepreneurship to get to us. And that's why, when I talk about the Affluence Blueprint, there's 3 critical outcomes that I look at. And the first critical outcome is that a true affluent entrepreneur understands that they want to live a richer lifestyle. And that has nothing to do with money.
Mm-hmm.
It has to do with the experiences, the feelings, and the method in which you live. There's a study, Harvard did a study in 2017, 4,000 millionaires. And it was a happiness study. They were trying to determine what made millionaires happy. And one of the top characteristics for them. Now, let's just put away a misconception. A lot of people think that most millionaires have inherited their wealth. Over 80% of millionaires are first generation millionaires. In other words, they created it themselves. And so with that in tow, you look at it and say, here's the Harvard study looking at 4,000 millionaires. And they said, one of the highest ranking factors in their happiness was not the money they made, but how they made the money they made. And so purpose, how, all those things matter. Richer lifestyle is not necessarily wealth. Wealth is a statistic. It's a bank account. It's a number of commas. It's a number of zeros. It doesn't matter. It's a scorecard. And there's plenty of people that have a ton of wealth. They got no richness in their life.
Yep.
They're bankrupt.
Yep. So let's ground this a little bit to give some takeaways for the listeners here. When it comes to shifting, because I mean, yet again, it's in the mind, right? If we're going to continue to see, when I get to a certain point where I've got the team, I got money to put away, then I will start building wealth. And so that's the fallacy in itself. So how can we start to shift our thinking in order to start building wealth now? So that way we're no longer working, like you said, because I think that's working from the avoidance is what you speak about a little bit. There's a certain type of entrepreneur or a wealth builder that's avoiding really doing things in a way that's going to get them the results they're after. So what's the first initial conversation to shift away from that paradox that people are working from?
Well, first off, let's get clear. I come from a place and a space where I believe that 99.9% of people do not have a money problem. They have a behavior problem.
Mm.
What you own, what you owe, what you got, and where it goes is the sum total of your past behaviors, your habits, and what you do. Okay. Which then means that if the thinking comes before the behavior, that it's a thinking problem.
Yep.
And so, now some people will say, no, I can't pay my bills. I can't do this. I can't do that. But you're making choices. I bet that if I sat down with you, and now I'm not saying this would be fun, and I'm not saying it would be easy. And I'm not saying, and I'm not being flippant about it. I'm just being direct about it. I'm being honest about it. Is that if I sat down with you with your credit card statements, with your bank statements, I bet I could find extra cash. You might not want to give up those things. I get it, but that's a choice. It's a decision. Totally cool with the decision. I never tell anyone to give up anything. All I want you to do is to make sure that you're absolutely aware, intentional in the decisions you make. And then we're good with it. I'm good with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my place to tell you how to spend and live your life. So, but once we understand that our behaviors cause our money situation and our thinking cause our behaviors, then we can get to the root of the issue. Now, some of our thinking comes from other things that have happened. Whether it's watching our parents. Most of us in this world never get educated on the money side.
Yep.
We don't talk about investment. We're not even supposed to talk money because gosh, it's a taboo topic. Don't talk about money. Well, how are we supposed to solve a problem that we never talk about?
Mm.
How are we supposed to give financial literacy to people that we never talk about? I started talking with my son Jeremy at 11. He started to get a commission at 11, so he could pay for things.
Yeah.
Reconcile a bank account, understand those things. We had conversations around it. And I truly believe that if we had a honest, real, transparent discourse about the typical things in our society today, things would be vastly different. For some reason, we don't want to have these conversations. For some reason, we want to avoid it. Or for some reason, we want to cancel people. For some reason, we want to do these other things so we can not listen to the possibility that there might be other perspectives. And I think that that's a mistake. It's a grave mistake that's going to come back to haunt us. And it is already, in my opinion.
That's huge to me too. And that was a big shift in not only being an entrepreneur, but in life. I literally, for the longest time, and I love how you said that, most people think they have a problem or, see it as a problem, but it's the thinking that got them there. It's the behavior that got them there. And that was the same thing with me. I literally was trying to fix my money mindset. And I would even call it that for the longest time. And then I realized that there's nothing broken about my money mindset besides the fact that I see there's something broken. Yeah. Because if I'm constantly working on the problem side of things, then where's the solution? I was stuck in the problem. So then I got a chance to shift into the solution and ask myself deeper questions. One of which being, and I had a problem with spending back then. I wasn't buying the fancy cars and the TVs and things like that, but I was buying a crap ton of books and all the things, right? Which served a purpose, but at the same standpoint, I was trying to fill a void at that point. So there is some deeper things that we must look at is like, why are we spending the way we're doing? Why are we doing the things that we're doing? And yes, I was wanting to learn. I love to learn, but there was this belief in going around in my world that if I just get the right information, then this is going to fix everything.
Yeah.
But it took me
that one key that I haven't gotten yet.
Yeah.
That's going to be the magic key that opens the gates to the golden goose.
Yeah. And it took me taking a deeper look. What is it? What is it that I'm chasing here? And obviously at the end of the day, we're chasing happiness. We're chasing freedom. We're chasing expansion. Yeah. And I got to take a closer look and say, can I choose that now? Absolutely. Yeah. So now I can change my behavior working from that paradigm of I can be happy right where I stand right now.
And I think that the other side of that is that most of what because we don't teach it, because we don't talk about it, and unless you take and make an effort. Now, some people will say to themselves, and it's a story, well, I'm not a numbers person. I get it, but that's a story you tell yourself. And I will tell you this. You can hang on to that story, but I promise you that your wealth And your financial liberation is on the other side of that story and that math problem. And we're not talking complex math. We're not talking about calculus and algebra. We're talking about adding, subtracting, and multiplication. If you understand how to do that, you'll understand this. But the most important thing to realize is that we're not talking about money here. We're talking about your family tree. We're talking about generations. We're talking about the people you love. We're talking about your legacy. We're not talking about what you leave behind. We're talking about what you experience right here and now. And if that's not important enough to say, I got to learn some new skills, I'm not sure what else to do.
Yeah.
Now I'm sorry, I get wound up, and you can tell.
No, this is good, man. I love this, and I know the listeners are feeling it too. And this does need passion. This is a topic that is emotionally charged, whichever way you look at it. So let's get passionate on the good side of it. Let's make a case.
I think that's the key. Now, I said it was a story, and I think that's really important to realize, is that a lot of our education in this arena comes from observation. We watch our parents. They might have argued about spending. They might have argued about things. You might have had a mom or a dad that would buy things and hide things from the other spouse. But as a child, you saw it. And the question is not what happened, because what happened was they bought things, hid it from the spouse. They argued about spending. That's what happened. That's the fact. The question is, what'd you make it mean? The question is, what interpretation did you give it? What did it mean in your life? And all of a sudden, you might turn around and say, oh, heck no, that ain't ever happened to me. And now what happens? You go into a relationship and you distrust your spouse. And you brought the money story, the interpretation of the facts that happened that had nothing to do with this person. And you bring it into this game. Yeah. And it becomes whatever, a money mindset, a money story, a scripture running, something, but it's affecting you. I have an identical twin brother, and he had some struggles at one point because he got into a job that he worked for a guy for 35 plus years. And my brother's one of the smartest people I know. But it was almost like an abusive relationship. So he didn't see value in himself. And it was frustrating for me to watch him do this to himself. He's not in that space anymore. He's in a great place right now, and doing well. But you know that I never told him about my first Tesla when I bought it. He never knew. We don't live in the same area. He lives in another state. So I hid it from him. Now, how did that show up in other areas of my life? Because I didn't want him to feel bad. I didn't want him to sit back. I just, because I cared about him. I mean, and everything. But that was affecting my decisions. I wasn't stepping into the fullness of who I was. I wasn't stepping into what I could be. And then meant that I was robbing my son, I was robbing my wife, I was robbing myself of the life that I needed to live, that I was able to live. And so we all have it. It doesn't matter where it comes from, but to understand that most of it is just a story. It's not a lack of capacity. It's not a lack of capability. It's just a story we're telling ourselves, because we gave it an interpretation. That interpretation serves us for somewhat reason. And we sit back and say, I have a ceiling. Do you really? Now, I do believe we have comfort zones. I think we have multiple comfort zones. Too often, when people hear, I hear people talk about comfort zone, they talk about a comfort zone. I don't think it's a comfort zone. I think it's multiple. I think you have a financial comfort zone. And that financial comfort zone, the walls of it are based upon the stories you tell yourself, the observations you make, the education you have, the access to people, your role models, and what you're willing to do. And when you're willing to grow and push those walls slowly, those comfort zone walls slowly out, you grow by skill, by knowledge, by association. And now your capacity grows greater. I think that's why people that win the lottery lose it, because they didn't push if we go into a gym and we go and just grab a big barbell and put a boatload of weight on it and go, we're going to pop a muscle. and then it's going to have to be repaired. And I think that's what happens when people come into a windfall when they're not prepared. When you slowly push the comfort zone walls out, you are skilling up, you're building the muscle, you're building the knowledge, you're building the wisdom. So when you get there, as you get there, you are fully equipped to handle it. But when we blow through that wall, that comfort zone so fast because we got a windfall, we're not equipped to handle it. And therefore, we revert back.
Yep.
We lose it all because we never got the skills. We never developed this, the smarts and the wisdom to handle it. And so understand that the comfort zone walls are meant to be expanded. They're meant to be tested. They're meant to be slowly moved out to grow.
Yeah. Beautiful conversation here. And this, we're talking about money, but at the end of the day, I like to tie this down into just to look at it from a lens of a spiritual conversation as well. How do we expect to evolve and to grow to the fullest potential if we can't manage such a simple thing as money?
Yeah.
Right? Money it's everywhere in our lives. And if we can't manage that energy, but we're doing the meditation and we're evolving and doing all the things, but if that's the one thing that we're not mastering in this lifetime, I would dare to look at it as a spiritual conversation. And with that being said, tying that back into stories a little bit, a lot of people out there wear their money stories like a badge of honor. I know I did for a long time. I saw how my parents treated money and I fell into the same thing. And then I would blame mom and dad, well, they did this and yada, yada, yada. But there's got to be a level of responsibility at some point or another for you to shift your own stories. If you don't like how the way things are, choose a new story.
Your story is like the wake of a boat. It tells you where you came from, but it doesn't guide you or where you're going. And so when we look back on our stories, it just gives us a piece of our history. And then we got to separate out the fact from the interpretation. And then we got to grab a hold of the rudder and steer the boat to where we want to go.
Yep. Mom and dad, grandpa and grandpa, whoever was, grandma, grandpa, whoever was in our lives, would it be fair to say they were doing the best they could with what they had back then? If they were, able to do any different, they would be. And so we can take that and say, hey, look, the stories that I adopted or accepted back then, they were doing the best they could. And so now looking to evolve and to grow the business and grow spiritually, grow financially, and start building wealth for yourself. Let's choose again. Let's see those moments and see that as, hey, look, they were doing the best they could.
This is I think it's an important conversation to have, because one of the other things that I hear as I'm speaking, I've been doing a lot of interviews and speaking and virtually and stuff of late, and people, especially based on the impact that the pandemic and the shutdown had on them, what they're doing is they're getting the big stick of the past out. Yeah. And they're beating themselves up and saying, I should have, I would have, I could have, I didn't listen. I should have listened to the accountant. I should have listened to my parents. I should have listened to this. I should have done all these things. And so what that does is all I'm doing is beating myself up. And it doesn't serve us other than make us feel really crappy. Mm-hmm. Listen, in 2005, I went into an investment. So I'm not infallible. I have lost more money than most people will make sometimes, in their life. A lot of people make it in their lifetime, but I've made it back. But in 2005, I got mixed up with a guy who turned out in an investment and turned out to be a Ponzi scheme. And he wiped out 1/3 of everything I had. 1/3 of my net worth was gone. Okay. Now we're talking into the 7 figures. Me and 2 other buddies, we lost over $4.5 million. Okay. Now I'm a financial guy. I'm a CPA. Think about the stories I was telling myself, the interpretations I gave. I mean, the shame, the guilt, the embarrassment, the perspective that I did not want to talk about it. I didn't want to have a conversation about it. I didn't want to even bring it up because, oh my God, what would people think of me? And then there was Jeremy. And I realized Jeremy's sitting there. I wasn't married at the time. He's watching me. So I had the choice. I crawl up in the fetal position, say, woe is me, and look what happened to me. And this jerk stole money from me. He lied, he cheated, he stole, I could do all that. you know, one of my two buddies did that. He spiraled into resentment. He spiraled into anger. He destroyed his business. He destroyed his marriage, and he destroyed his liver. He started drinking. Now he's finally coming out of it. But mind you, that was 15 years ago. I had to look at it and say, if I do that, then what am I teaching my son?
Yep.
What role model am I serving? And so I had to figure it out. The one thing that they took from me was money. But money's a tool. Money's just a scorecard. They didn't take my identity. They didn't take my skills. They didn't take my knowledge. Now I had to do some work because I said, why did I get caught up in it? What caused me to do that? What were the lessons that came out of it? And take those lessons from it, because if I don't take the lessons from it, there's no value in it. I mean, I paid for a PhD and MBA twice over with what I lost there. So I better have learned something from it. But then more importantly, is I needed to go transfer that knowledge to someone else so it didn't happen. Because then that actually magnifies the value, and it cements the positive impact of that. And so I think that we need to look at it and say, look, I don't care what happened in the pandemic. I mean, I do, but I don't in the sense of what it determines for your future. Okay. It doesn't define what's next for you. It refines your thinking. And if we're going to sit back and beat ourselves up saying, I should have, I could have, I would have, you're just never going to move. And so let's put the bad stick of the past down, accept where we're at, and let's equip ourselves to move forward from wherever we're at, because you made the decisions to be here, and that's fine. And for whatever reason, that's the way it was meant to be. And so now we take it from there. And we say, this is the foundation. Let's build from there. Let's use solid principles. Let's use solid thinking. Let's get the right people in our corner, and let's build from wherever we're at, because it's never too late.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I love that a couple of different times in this episode, you've talked about using certain struggles, or if that's what we even want to call it, circumstances of life, into a story that's going to compel you forward. So at any given moment, we can choose meaning, we can choose the story. And as you see Mel, he's programmed himself to say, hey, look, I'm not going to allow this to be the stick of the past. I'm going to allow this to be the story of the future. And so he's utilizing things that happened in his life, not as a gift or a curse, but as something to bless others with, and to share lessons that are going to have huge impacts on other people's lives as well. So Mel, thank you, man. This is a beautiful conversation to bridge the gap into mentioning your podcast, because this is something that you're going to be going a lot deeper in. And yes, we're kind of setting the stage here today and just helping people to see this whole conversation around money differently. And now you guys head over to Mel's podcast, the Affluent Entrepreneur Show, to be able to get some more concrete, tangible guidance and advice and insights, and more stories from Mel, because he's a man of his stories. He's got some great stories to be able to start building wealth from where you are today. We don't need to have thousands and hundreds of thousands in the bank in order to start calling that as building wealth. There's a more strategic and intentional way to do so. And Mel's life's work right now is to help you with that. So tell us a little bit, Mel, about the show real quick, and also where we can find you on social media and all that. Yeah.
So the Affluent Entrepreneur Show is a podcast and a video show. And literally the purpose of it is for me to have conversations with you about the intersection between your business and your money, because that's where your life is. And how do we scale the business so we can scale your money, so we can scale your life? And it's really about moving you from a treadmill entrepreneur to an affluent entrepreneur in a way that gives you a richer lifestyle, a deeper impact, and complete freedom. And so I want to have real conversations, forget the taboo about money. Let's have real conversations about making the impact, doing things differently, and what really works, what's worked. Let's talk about the struggles, find a safe place to have conversations. Part of the show, some of the episodes will be me educating, training, me in frameworks. I'll be drawing some frameworks and doing some of that to walk through it. The other part will be me interviewing some of my clients, some amazing entrepreneurs, to talk about their struggles and how they move through it and take some of the pearls of their wisdom. And then the other episodes are going to be with the audience. I want to do some real-time coaching and mentoring live with them. I want to answer questions with you. So I want this to be a resource for someone that's searching to live a financially liberated, affluent life and do it in a way that's effective. You know, some people will look at it and go, well, what do you mean affluence? And so let me just really clearly say, it's not about the money, because you'll see that only one piece of affluence has to do with money. Because I think the first part of affluence is living a meaningful life, something that means something. The second part is that it's an impactful life, something that does something. The third is that it's a fruitful life. And that's the only thing that has to do with money, that it gives something that supports me, it changes my generations and my family tree. And the fourth is it's a peaceful life. And when we get that, that's true affluence. And that's where I want to play. So that show is I'd love to have you all as listeners and viewers and comments and questions. And you can also find me on the Instagrams at Mel Abraham 9 and on my website, melabraham.com. I mean, I'd love to hear from y'all and see what I can do to guide you in this space. This is my happy place, is serving and making a difference and seeing people shine and soar.
Yeah. You do it well. You do it well, Mel. So thank you for helping entrepreneurs and business people all the same to get off the hamster wheel of the, just chasing the dollars. And I would invite all of you right now just to suspend all beliefs, look at your beliefs and see them as beliefs, not as truths, but beliefs, in order for you to take this invitation from Mel and to start listening to his show as well, in order to be able to start working from this standpoint now. Because we can always say tomorrow, the next day, the next day, the next day, but just like Mel hit on earlier, then life throws you a curveball. You're going to be cussing, looking back to this episode saying, well, Adam and Mel should have listened to them guys on this show. So let's take this serious now. This is a huge conversation. And Mel, thank you for paving the way and stepping into this and leading with your heart. It's always something I've admired about you. So thank you, my friend. Keep doing your thing. And for the listeners, we got great guests ahead. So keep coming back for more, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Adam Kadu podcast. If you would take a moment to subscribe and click the bell icon so that way you get notified when future episodes air. Now, here's the thing. If you are looking for the show notes, you can find a link to those below. If you're looking for the handles of the guests that I've been interviewing, things of that nature, you'll find that here. And if there's anything else that stood out to you in the episode, or if there's anything I can do for you, please leave a comment below, or for sure message me on Instagram if you'd like, as I'm always looking to hear what's working well for you and what caught your interest about the Adam Kadu podcast. So, time to go, time to change the world, time to help more people. Are you ready? Let's go do this thing. The world needs more leaders. So thanks again for listening to the Adam Kadu podcast.